But see, I was born from my mother, and we're watching fireworks. And my mother says to my father, I think we better go. Because she's carrying this big bubble in the front of her body. So he packed up the car, Zibbo, went over to Bridgeport Hospital, where I was born. And they left my mother there to be examined, and it was only a 6-pound baby, but that was bothering her. Carrying 6 pounds.
Is that how big you were?
Yeah. When I first arrived, 6-pound baby. Boy, I was healthy.
Can you believe it? The whole family came to see you.
I was right here. I had quite a beautiful day.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Well, you told me to bring Emily up, and I brought Emily and John.
Where's Emily?
Right
There's a lot of
there.
money in Silicon Valley, and basically they...
I grew up in Flushing, New York. And my grandmother, or my mother and father didn't get along too well, so they pulled me and sent me up to Grandma's house. And that's where I moved to. Flip cards. We were always playing on the cards, not marbles. The man across the street, he had a little pond in his yard, and we go over and look at the fish that are swimming around. And to get up on the snow, we'd hang onto the bag, onto the car, and Zippo, it pulled us all the way up to the top. I wish your kids would stay off my car. And then, on top of that, the trolley car would stop, because I didn't want to go to Flushing. I wanted to go to Forest Hills High School. And to get to Forest Hills, I couldn't walk, it was too far. So I was hanging on the wire, and the trolley car would stop. He would get angry at me. Will you leave that car? Leave that wire alone. We're a typical kid. Because that trolley car only ran with electricity to the sky above. Bingo. Bingo.
You know, Dad was great. He was really encouraging on sports and family. He obviously worked really hard to get to where he was. Spent, I think, 42 years at United Technology, and just really was dedicated to his family and work.
My dad and my mom each had distinct personalities. My mom she had a way of persuading you that, you know, kind of the plan she had was right. So when I say that she was kind of in control, it wasn't a forceful control. It was more that she had good sense, and basically she was in charge.
Doris was great. My mom, she was there for everything. And you know, her favorite saying was, just do your best. Just try your hardest, do your best, and that's all that anybody can ask of you. And that got all of us through some pretty tough times. And you know, whether it was high school or swim meets or college or, you know, even the work world, she always said, just do your best. She was just a sweetheart. She really was. She had a big heart.
He made us all realize that we were, number one, you know, to live moral, ethical lives. They were both religious, and we went to church. But to realize that you are really someone that needs to be responsible for his actions, in that you can't blame it on anybody else, or the sun was in my eyes, or whatever, that you needed to be responsible for your actions, and to avoid getting into the situation where you say, I'm sorry. And to ask for help. They were always around to help and encourage, and provided us with activities that, whether our travel or the things we did, and they were regular activities. I mean, we could count on doing the same things every year.
You know, my dad was a pretty. He liked to create memories. He liked to create opportunities for everybody to just sit back, enjoy the moment, and reflect on that later. And to this day, you know, some of our best memories are made because he made it happen and really planned it all out for us.
My mom and my dad had a good marriage. My dad was very outgoing, personable, handy, able to get stuff done. My mother was quite cerebral. She loved to read. I'm sorry. It's hard because in my job as a lawyer, I'm a writer. I got that from my mom. But she was quiet. She was a contrast to my dad, but she really was the base, both of my parents, but Mom always knew what was going on and really had good judgment as far as how things should go.
He basically got tickets to Yankees all the time, so we used to go down on the weekend to go see Yankee games, and my favorite was watching doubleheaders, and Twilight doubleheaders at that.
And I used to go to the ball games. And then my boys would come home and say, Dad, can we go see baseball today? I said, sure. I told them, I got tickets. Let's go. Bingo. We went down to the Yankee Stadium. Well, yeah, we would sit down right behind the dugout. It wasn't out in the field. Bingo. You're right behind the dugout. We were sitting right behind them.
Wow.
And that made my boys happy. Because we're going to go to a baseball game today, Dad. Okay.
You know, actually one of the most vivid memories is probably when we were playing checkers at the Vermont house he talks about so much. And then we would go on the boat, we'd have a good time, but I remember playing checkers when I was really young, and he asked me if I knew how to play chess, and I said no, and he said, well, let's play checkers then. And we must have played checkers for hours. And we'd get the salami and crackers in the basement, and it was just really beautiful there. And I remember at the end of the trip, I saw this teddy bear with a little red bow on it. And I just caught my eye, and I was like, oh, I love this. And Doris said, well, if you love it, you can have it.
One of my most special memories was when they first came to see me ride, because I ride horses, and they saw me like right in the beginning when I was like 6 years old. And they came down to Florida to see me ride, and I thought it was really special.
I think I really appreciate, you know, I'm going to lump my grandmother into it too, but I just appreciate my grandparents for the relationship, like we talked about before, that they showed me kind of growing up. You know, I look forward to having a family myself and having kids, and I think in all relationships, I think the most important thing to find is that they had things that they liked to do together, you know, and I think that was something that I always noticed, is that we always had something we were doing, you know, and it was never like, let's just sit around the house and do nothing. And if we were sitting around the house doing nothing, we were playing cards, we were doing something. But I'm just so thankful for them for all the fun things that we did, you know, over the last, you know, 30 years. I remember all of it. You know, I think it comes back to me a lot more when I'm around them. But, you know, my grandfather always, you know, kind of had a toughness to him, but he also had a fun kind of sarcastic side, which I think I inherited a lot of. And my grandma was just the sweetest woman, and I'm so blessed to have the two grandmothers that I had, because they were just wonderful in their own ways, you know. And I think they were the type of people that could take care of a family, but at the same time, you know, they had their own things. They had their own friends and their own type of things that they like to do. So, you know, I'm very, very blessed to have had the grandparents in total, all of my grandparents that I had, you know, and I love them to death, and they know that, and I know that everything, you know, I know they're going to go off to heaven, and they're going to be fine, and they'll be out up there driving their boats and doing the things that they do. So
She was so sweet. Just everything she did, she was just really so kind. She always wanted to feed you or to take care of you in some way. She was just like, you know, that mother. And so it was just always so sweet of her. And yeah, she just, like Grandpa said, you know, she loved being in the kitchen and cooking for you and doing stuff for you. I remember when she had her first stroke, we thought it was going to be the end. And we were in Florida when we first moved in 2004. And we all just kind of cried. And, you know, I think we were blessed to see her for a few more years and really like get to see her and know that, you know, this could be the last time, but, you know, I think I saw her 2 more times after that. So, you know, I'm just blessed that we had that kind of time. Yeah. And I think that it really hurt everybody when she passed, but, you know, I wouldn't want her to be in pain.
Doris started getting sick, and Grandma, you know, and I think coming out here, she handled herself really well. I just think the toughest part was that the body started taking the toll on her. I think her mind was there. I think it was just that, you know, her body started shutting down on her, and it was tough for me because, you know, I work in physical therapy, as does Gary, you know, in the medical side, and you can see the body kind of just starting to go on her, but her mind was still there, you know, and she was crisp as could be. It's tough, you know, and so I can remember going to dinner one night, and I think the last memory that I really have of her struggle was it was just tough for her to take down some bread. I remember that, and I think that was one of the toughest experiences to watch, but, you know, she toughed it out the whole way through, so she was a fighter.
Well, it affected all of us. It affected my dad the most because she took care of everything from laying his clothes out to cooking every meal and basically planning his life. And that went away immediately, and it was quite traumatic for him. For all of us, we knew that she was the female in the family, and she really was the glue that held us together.
She had a few strokes, and she progressively got worse. And the last time I saw her, Grandpa was still a little bit more on it. And we all went up there, and he visited her every day. But the day that I went there, you know, she just, you know, since the time before that I'd seen her, she, you know, you could tell things were getting worse. But, you know, she still hung in there, and she was still a tough spirit, and she still mentally knew who I was and was pretty on it.
It was great. I think one of the biggest things that I'll remember from it is that I think driving away from the funeral, I'm not one to get too choked up, you know, I don't normally, but you know, Charlie just, you know, I sat in the limo with him, and I sat with Grandpa, and he just the whole time just, you know, just yelling out during the ceremony how much he loved his wife, you know, and I think in this day and age that's kind of hard to find.
That was tough. It took many years. I think it took 3 years for her to deteriorate to a point where she just eventually passed. But it was emotionally tough for everybody, and quite frankly, we miss her to this day.
Doris, let me put it in words. She was, like I say, maybe you heard me. I said it over the grave. Doris, you've been a wonderful wife and my children. And I thank you, Doris, for all you have done. And Doris was always so nice. And that's all. She didn't, she wasn't sewing, she wasn't doing anything. She was just happy to be alive. She was a great wife, that I miss her.
We owe her a lot for being kind of the stay-at-home mom and really helping us grow. And yeah, I think my dad told me this story that Gary and I were moving forward with Monroe Elementary Schools, and my mother insisted that we all work very hard and try to do our very best, and we were good students. And that was when Wayne was about to enter school, she said, this is not acceptable, and that's why she made the move to Trumbull.
You know, it was a whole family. My dad had an influence just through his work ethic. My mom, from a standpoint of just making sure that people were taken care of and treated well. And my brothers, quite frankly, were two very, I looked up to them. They were major icons for me, and what they did in their school and their careers were a huge, huge benefit to me.
If I had to say why, I became a surgeon, I became OCD at a very young age because both my father and my mother were very, very disciplined, and you could count on things happening because you did things in a very straightforward way. You didn't cut corners, as it were.
Our house was right on the land, and she would make sure those boys got dressed and went to the grammar school that we were going to. And she would peek because they were going to connect them. They had a bus in those days where they would stop and pick up the students. And she would make sure that my boy, I think it was Glenn, he always liked to play with the animals in the ground. And Mom says, don't spend your time doing that. Get into school. Never mind the bugs in the ground. No, those were good times. I'm glad I'm still alive to talk about it.
There were parts of her family where education was very important, and I think she had already been able to see the value of hard work in school and trying to go to the best college you could. She knew that was important, and she instilled that in us, and that was very important.
And she was as much of a teacher as my teachers in school. She would go to bat for us, and in many ways she's similar to some of the surgeons I've worked with as professors, because she would stand up for her children to the hilt. Even to the point where maybe she stretched the truth a little bit, and she never let facts get in the way of a good story, but she would just absolutely support us to the hilt. Then afterwards, she would say, why in the world would you do something like that? And but she was just incredibly loyal, and she knew what she wanted. They both wanted a great life for their kids, and so we owe it all to them.
So
Yeah.
okay, there you go. So tell
Grandpa was the chief game warden in Connecticut.
right. And when Babe
And
Ruth
his
wanted
job
to go
was to
hunting-
go out into the woods and question everybody, make sure they had the permit to hunt up there in New Hampshire.
Right.
Not New Hampshire, Connecticut.
Connecticut, right.
So he was the chief game warden in Connecticut,
Right.
my grandpa.
Right.
So he would go around checking all these people that were out there hunting and whatever they were doing. Look, I'm happy. I'm doing what God told me.
What's that?
Be happy.
What does Mom tell you? What did Mom tell you before she passed?
She had one other piece of
You know what she wants to know?
What?
She was in the bedroom there.
Yeah.
And she says, not today, Charlie.
Not tonight, Charlie.
Not tonight. She's got me all marked.
I was there.
No,
Oh man.
I mean,
Yeah.
I still miss her. I still see that picture.
Yeah. Well, we
Right
went
on.
over. We went over to see her grave.
Did you?
Yeah.
He was from Long Island. But other than that, life has not been dull, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it all the time. Even now. I'm happy to be Mr. Sikorsky. You know, time just goes by. That's the other best part. One day, I was over at Sikorsky, and the boys were young. So I went to the chief pilot, and I said to the chief pilot, I said, can my boys go? Because he was going to fly from the plant to that new area they're building. He said, sure, just make sure they're downstairs when I'm leaving. They can get on board. Hey, we got up to the town, and all their little friends, because they were just building this airport. And their little friends would be there, and they would see my boys getting off in helicopter. And boy, were they excited. How did you do that?
Yeah.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, as you know. And so, my boys would get off the helicopter, because it was just a dirt airport they were building. And they would get off, and all their little friends were all excited. They could see my boys getting off this helicopter. And that's all they ever knew. But I worked the arrangement with the chief pilot that they could ride in the helicopter. So they did. We had a nice ride. It was a nice day. Lot of nice memories that I have. For an old man, I try to do my best.